Good evening. Welcome to South Asia Newsline. I am Uzma Jafri. Here are the top stories we are tracking for you on Friday, the 1st of March. One security personnel, two terrorists killed in encounter in India's Jammu and Kashmir. India calls for dismantling of terror infrastructure at OIC meet skipped by Pakistan. And Afghan President stresses preserving women's rights in peace process. And now for all the details. Security forces gunned down two terrorists in an encounter in Kupwara district of India's northern Jammu and Kashmir province on Friday. One paramilitary personnel had also lost his life as the operations continued till the last reports came in.
Two terrorists were neutralized by the security forces in an encounter in Kupwara district of India's northern Jammu and Kashmir province on Friday. The encounter broke out in the wee hours of Friday after security forces launched search operations upon specific inputs about presence of terrorists in Handwara area of the district. This came after two terrorists belonging to Pakistan-based Jaish-e-Mohammed terror group were gunned down in a similar encounter in Shopian district of the province on Wednesday. India accuses neighbouring Pakistan of arming and infiltrating terrorists across the border to spread unrest in the Kashmir Valley. Pakistan denies the allegations.
Indian Foreign Minister Sushma Swaraj said on Friday that terrorism is destabilizing regions and putting the world at great peril. She made the remarks at the meeting of Organization of Islamic Cooperation, which was skipped by her Pakistani counterpart. Tensions have been running high between India and Pakistan since at least 40 Indian security personnel were killed in a terror attack on February 14 in India's Jammu and Kashmir. The attack was claimed by Pakistan-based Jaish-e-Mohammed terror group.
Terrorism is destroying lives, destabilizing regions and putting the world at great peril, Indian Foreign Minister Sushma Swaraj said on Friday at the 46th Foreign Ministers meet in Abu Dhabi. Swaraj made the remarks while addressing members of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation or OIC. Hinting indirectly at Pakistan, Swaraj said that the nations which support terrorism must be warned that such pursuits give no benefit to anyone. She also urged the world to help dismantle terror hotbeds and their funding mechanism to bring an end to the menace.
If we want to save the humanity, then we must tell the states who provide shelter and funding to the terrorists to dismantle the infrastructure of the terrorist camps and stop providing funding and shelter to the terror organizations based in that country.
The timing of Swaraj's visit, who has been invited as a guest of honor at the meet with 57 participating countries, comes when tensions between India and Pakistan are at a peak. Ahead of Swaraj's visit, Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi said he would not attend the meeting because his Indian counterpart had been invited to the event.
Moving on. The illegally occupied territory of Pakistan-administered Kashmir has been reeling under Pakistan's misrule for the last 7 decades. Since then, Islamabad has been depriving the residents of basic education required for the development of any individual. Locals allege that it is part of Pakistan government's agenda to keep the region underdeveloped.
Poor quality of education and dwindling infrastructure define the state of education in the illegally occupied territory of Pakistan-administered Kashmir. Owing to bad infrastructure and no facilities in the government-run educational institutions, most of the students are turning to private institutions to receive education. But very few students are able to enroll due to unbearably high fees. The owners of private institutes also blame the administration for not providing them any financial or technical assistance.
एजुकेशन फाउंडेशन पाकिस्तान के चारों सूबों में और मरकज़ में काम कर रही है, आज़ाद कश्मीर में उसका कोई वजूद नहीं है। कोई ऐसी सहूलत हमारे लिए नहीं है कि हमें रजिस्ट्रेशन तजदीद दूसरे जो प्रॉब्लम मसाइल हैं वो हमें सहूलत के साथ मिल सकें। आपको हैरत होगी कि हमारी एक अदारे के फ़ीस जमा करवानी होती है रजिस्ट्रेशन की, बिम्बर से, नीलम से, हवेली से वो उस अदारे के मालिक को मुजफ्फराबाद आना पड़ता है स्टेट बैंक में फीस जमा करवाने के लिए.
As per a report published in 2016 on government-run schools, 43% children in Pakistan-administered Kashmir never joined primary schools. 35% dropped out from the primary schools. 41% schools lack infrastructure. 87% are without electricity, and 73% schools are even without availability of drinking water. People of Pakistan-administered Kashmir have been waiting for years now for a better administration that could work for their development. However, the corruption and ignorance in the system has become a major challenge for the growth of the region, leaving the future of youth in dark.
In news from Afghanistan, Afghan President Ashraf Ghani on Thursday stressed the need for preserving women's rights in the peace process and said the issue should be given a special attention during the upcoming Traditional Grand Assembly on Peace in Kabul. He made the remarks while addressing Women's National Conference in the Afghan capital.
Afghan President Ashraf Ghani on Thursday stressed the need for preserving women's rights in the peace process and said the issue should be given a special attention during the upcoming Traditional Grand Assembly on Peace in Kabul. Ghani made the remarks while addressing a gathering of around 2,000 women from across the country in the Afghan capital. He called the event a historic day and said women are a force of positive change in the country.
که حضور فعال و همه جانبه در لجنه مشورتی خود داشتیم.
با ما یک تشویش خلق شد که خوساییس اونا میشینن ولی کی به نام خانوما گپ بزنن.
The assembly known as Loya Zirga is expected to be held from March 17th to March 28th. It is a centuries-old institution in Afghan tribal politics used to build consensus among competing interest groups. It was used to lay the foundation of a post-Taliban society following the US-led campaign that ended their rule in 2001.
More on news from Afghanistan. Afghan President Ashraf Ghani and Chief Executive Abdullah on Thursday said Afghan forces are fighting on the front line the battle for international peace and security. They also paid tributes to the sacrifices of Afghan armed forces in the war against insurgency.
Afghan President Ashraf Ghani and Chief Executive Abdullah on Thursday said Afghan forces are fighting on the front line the battle for international peace and security. The National Unity Government leaders made the remarks during a ceremony organized on Armed Forces Day to pay tributes to the sacrifices of Afghan national security and defense forces in the war against insurgency. During the ceremony, both the leaders pledged to use all resources for further improvement of the Afghan forces.
باید تو فکر نکنن که یک فرصت برای تبلیغاتشان، یک فرصت برای که نشان بدن که حال طرف قضیه اوناستن، یک فرصت برای که باز دوباره باز آمادگی نظامی بگیرن به یک بهانه و بیان باز جنگ تشدید کنن، اینطور نبینن بگی.
The statement by the top Afghan leaders came at a time when US negotiators and Taliban members were holding talks on Afghan peace in Doha. After the talks were called off for 2 days, the Taliban spokesperson said the war would come to an end in the country and Taliban fighters will join the ranks of the Afghan army if the two sides sealed an agreement on the withdrawal of foreign forces from Afghanistan. The talks are expected to resume on Saturday.
Bangladesh has told the United Nations Security Council that it cannot take any more refugees from Myanmar. Some 18 months after hundreds, mainly Rohingya Muslims, started pouring across the border. Bangladesh's Foreign Secretary on Thursday told the UN Council meeting that the crisis over the repatriation has gone worse and urged the Council to take decisive action.
Bangladesh's Foreign Secretary Shahidul Haq told the UN Security Council on Thursday that Bangladesh will no longer be able to take in refugees from Myanmar. Haq told a council meeting that the crisis over the repatriation of hundreds of Rohingya sheltering in his country had gone from bad to worse and urged the council to take decisive action. It's been 18 months since hundreds of refugees started pouring into Bangladesh. The mostly Rohingya Muslims were fleeing a military crackdown in neighboring Myanmar. The United Nations, the US and the UK have described the events in Myanmar that forced more than 700,000 refugees to flee across the border as ethnic cleansing. Myanmar denies those accusations and has said its security forces were responding to attacks from militant groups in the region, also saying they have been ready to accept returning refugees since January. But Bangladesh has now accused Myanmar of hollow promises and obstructionist approaches.
Punjabi folk dance Bhangra was recently performed by Indian artists as part of the Festival of India in Nepal's capital Kathmandu city. The month-long event has been organized to strengthen cultural ties between the two nations.
With an objective of strengthening the existing age-old cultural ties between India and Nepal, Punjabi folk dance Bhangra was recently performed by Indian artists as part of the month-long Festival of India in Nepal's capital Kathmandu city. During the event, a group of artists hailing from India's northern Punjab province mesmerized the audience with their dance and singing performances. The event was aimed at reinforcing sensibilities, affinities, and shared cultural bonds between the people of the two countries. India and Nepal share unique bonds of friendship, characterized by deep-rooted people-to-people ties. Since millennia, people of both the countries have nurtured common heritage of art, music, and cinema.
Students in India's southern Coimbatore city celebrated National Science Day by participating in a science expo on Thursday. Various models on sugarcane breeding and soil tests for sugarcane cultivation were among the displays at the event.
Students in India's southern Coimbatore city celebrated National Science Day by participating in a science expo on Thursday. The event, attended by more than 1,500 students, was organized by the National Sugarcane Breeding Institute in the city. Various models on sugarcane breeding and soil test for sugarcane cultivation were among the displays at the event.
So I'm a MSc student of biotechnology. So I just here to visit sugarcane industry, and it's just beneficial for as a science students, and it is beneficial for us because in this first I visited the insect varieties which infects the sugarcane. So I just came to know about the different types of insects that infects the sugarcane.
National Science Day in India is celebrated every year on February 28th to mark the discovery of Raman effect by Indian physicist C.V. Raman. The day is now also celebrated to widely spread a message about the importance of science used in the daily life of the people and to display all the activities, efforts and achievements in the field of science for human welfare.
Well, that's the way it was in South Asia this evening. Before we conclude, the top stories once again. One security personnel, 2 terrorists killed in encounter in India's Jammu and Kashmir. India calls for dismantling of terror infrastructure at OIC meet skipped by Pakistan. And Afghan President stresses preserving women's rights in peace process. Now our viewers can watch the show on SouthAsiaNewsline.com. You can also visit us on Facebook.com/SAsiaNewsline and follow us on Twitter @SAsiaNewsline. That's all in tonight's edition. We will see you same time next week. Have a great weekend. Good night.